I'm BrianVee, and this is Why We Work. Today, I have the great pleasure of speaking with Trey Campbell. Trey is a contributing author to ESPN, and he's a lover of Nascar. Today, I want to find out from him where that love first came from. Also, why he thinks some racing fans tend to hate NASCAR. Join me in my conversation with Trey Campbell. I'm BrianVee, and this is Why We Work. Today, I have the great pleasure of speaking with Trey Campbell. Good day, fine sir.
Good day to you, sir. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Trey. Thank you for doing this on short notice. I've been wanting to get you on for a while now since our mutual friend, Frankie. I shouldn't say friend, but I don't know if Frankie would call me his friend, so I don't want to say that he
I
is.
think he'd call you. I think he's your friend.
But
He's called me his friend.
He's
So
at
I
least
think,
my manager, right? That's what I know.
a little bit. Frankie has a distinct way of talking to people. It's
You will do
very,
this.
yeah. He does that sometimes. He'll be like, "Hey Trey, it's Frankie. You'll go on BrianVee WhyWeWork show." And I'm like, "All right, Frankie, I got you." But I was planning on coming on anyway. That my messenger is very strange. It
Good.
filters out things, and some things I don't see. So
Yeah, understandable. Trey, will
yeah,
you well, thank you for coming on, but will you do me a favor and tell us what industry you're working in and
sure.
a little bit about what you're up to nowadays?
Sure. Well, I work currently as a board operator slash radio producer for ESPN 97.5. It's very part-time right now, but I'm in the beginning stages, and basically what I do is there's a big audio board, and you turn the mics on, make sure the producers' mics are on, you play music beds, commercials, just all that kind of stuff. And it's very rewarding when you hear yourself on the radio and people come in and talk about, what like bits they like and stuff. And I really enjoy it immensely. I've worked in construction for most of my life as well. I've driven a dirt roller, but I don't do that as much anymore. But that's also enjoyable, but not as enjoyable as the radio.
I sometimes I find myself looking at cranes and saying, or even dump trucks and cement trucks and people working building apartment buildings. I'm like, man, I wish I could do that. Like I
Yeah,
just stop what I'm doing and go do that right now.
yeah, and it's very accessible. I mean, there's a lot of people that are just doing general labors and stuff, but I was basically born on like a backhoe. My dad put me on a backhoe like immediately after I was born, so
Well,
I was kind of.
Trey, speaking of that, my question was going to be, why don't you bring us back into what was your first job? What would have been the very first thing you did? And maybe working on a backhoe. But what was the first thing you did as a kid, maybe?
That was exactly. I would go with my dad to like sites. I would work on tugboats. I would work on apartment complexes. There's one we were doing in Clear Lake. I would go to just all kinds of places. Wherever there was dirt, me and my dad were there. And when I was young,
How
basically,
young were you when you first started?
I was like maybe 6 years old. I think like
Nice.
'01 is as far as I can remember going back. But my dad would
Hmm.
be like, "All right, son, go pick up like little pieces of
Hmm.
rebar, or go pick up some of the trash that they throw on the ground." So little by little, it just kind of kept evolving, and I had an in like a lot of people with my dad being such a big construction guy. But I did that. I volunteered at a college for a little while when I was in college, because they had those things where you could work like a certain amount of hours and like do like office stuff. So I did that for like not very long, but just those two. I've been in the family business for most of my life, and
So as you got into high school, were you thinking you were going to continue, even though you volunteered to do something else in college? Were you thinking you wanted to go the route of construction, or what were you thinking?
I was thinking that was going to be kind of something I would do like as a side type of thing. My career was always to get into media.
Was
I had
it
all
side? Was it side, or you knew you could always fall back on it if you
that
did?
was, yeah, that's more or less. I knew I could fall back on it, and I can drive a dirt roller pretty well. I think I could probably figure out a way to get back on one. But I always said, like, I'm not doing this forever. I mean, it's good. It's easy money, but I'm not, my goal is not going to be working on in Clear Lake. I want to go into radio, and I want to go into entertainment and journalism and all that. That was always my goal, and that was the way I would try to get there. So
Did you find that watching your dad work in the industry turned you away from it, or was the appeal to media just so strong that that's the direction you wanted to go?
well, I never really had anything against work in construction. I think it's very honorable.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of these people work their way up. Like my dad worked his way up, and I thought that was really cool. And there's part of me that enjoyed going out there, but it was just so hot. And I really loved media more than anything. Like
Mm-hmm.
we would be I would be going, I would be on the roller for about 8 to 9 hours a day, and then I'd go to the station at night. And I was like completely miserable when I would go to the station because I was so tired. But I knew, like, when I got there, everything was better, and like everything felt normal. So that was when I knew, I was like, I can be here and take my lumps, kind of intern here for a while I'm doing this, and maybe it'll work up to something, and I'll just keep driving the dirt roller for safekeeping, and that's how it kind of went. Overall, it was just I just had more of an affinity for working in media than
Was there something,
construction.
is there something that you're gearing towards? So out of high school, you're thinking media. Was there some attraction to something in particular?
Yeah, I always, like, when I was young, I would watch the news, and I would watch like Sports Center a lot, and I would think it was really cool how the presentation went. And it just grew as much, a lot more, when I finally went to intern at the ESPN 97.5 here in Houston in 2017. I was like, I really fell in love with it then. Like, I liked how you cut audio and did all the audio editing, and there was all this stuff, and I really liked how, like, there would be people coming in and out, and I thought it was really cool. But overall, yeah, I had always kind of had admirations to do that, go into sports media or just media in general.
So 2017 is your first experience with media?
Yeah, it was October 30th, or no, October 29th. It was right before Halloween. And that was my first day. I had known the guys before,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't work for them. But like, they knew me, and they were excited to kind of have me working there, because I don't know, they just kind of took a liking to me. So basically, I just kind of yeah, that's pretty much all of it. Like, I started in 2017. I started interning and working on the side, but yeah, that was how it started. And
What is it? What is your niche? What is it in? So ESPN sports, is this what you want to stay in? Is this what you had a love for your whole life, as more of a sports rather than an entertainment of, say, movies or something like that?
yeah, I think both would be really cool. I would, I see, but sports is my first sort of my niche. I'm really into motorsports more than anything. That would be my end goal, is to cover motorsports, NASCAR, F1, anything really with an engine that races. I want to cover. But yeah, I think sports. Although I would love to be, I've always, like, in my head, I've done stand-up routines in my head. So it would be cool to be a comedian, but the world's really kind of an oyster at this point. I'm just trying to figure out which, but overall, my end goal is to cover NASCAR.
Isn't
That's
it
what I
funny
want.
though? It's like I mentioned about construction. and I have to be careful when I say like, I look at that and I just want to go do it. Maybe the constructions guy might say you're not going to be able to do it. In the same way with comedy, right? I'm like, I would love, I think more so I'd like to try stand-up comedy than construction. But sometimes I still would like to do construction just to get your hands dirty. But to get up on stage and to deliver something. Have you seen some of those Netflix specials and some of those things on comedy? Is that kind of in growing your love for comedy and the process that goes behind it?
For sure. Yeah, that and knowing a couple of people that do it around here is real.
Mm-hmm.
I've really kind of thought it was cool. Like, but yeah, especially people that are big, like Bill Burr, you know, Nathan Fielder, people like that really influenced me to want to create sort of a tangible type of entertainment product like comedy or something like that, you know.
For sports, you mentioned NASCAR, and I have this question because I read somewhere that you know your NASCAR, and I love NASCAR, but
Interesting.
I definitely don't have the knowledge you have, especially being in South Korea for so long. I have
Yeah, I
no
don't think it's that
idea.
popular.
No, not at all. I mean, people drive as if they know about it, but maybe more Formula F1 racing. Where did that love for NASCAR? I love NASCAR, just everything about it. I wish I could be in a place that I can go to an event. I know in my hometown of Halifax, Nova Scotia, near the airport, we have this small track, and it seems like they push on the pedal, they have to get into the turn. And I brought my son once, and it's one of his favorite memories because they also had monster trucks there. What was your first introduction into NASCAR?
Well, when I was young, my dad, he raced at a local dirt track here in Baytown. He had this old like Camaro that he raced, and he did that for a while. And I guess he always was a big car guy, and it was just on at some point. I think my dad liked watching it, but like it was on, and when I was a baby, I just like it just it just clicked. And when I was younger, when I grew up a little bit more, I just started reading NASCAR guides like front to back, like all day, and writing stuff down. And I was like, it just became my livelihood. And I was like, man, I got to get into this some way. And that's, but I would say it came from my dad more than anything. And the colors, I really like the colors too. So
you mentioned your love of engines, so I can see how you would love NASCAR and F1, but I find there's a lot of people, I'm saying this generalized, but a lot of people don't like NASCAR, and I can't understand it. Do you have any idea, even why racing fans, like F1 racing fans or some other sort of motorsport, just they don't get NASCAR? Some people, oh, you're always turning left, or, you can't make a right turn or whatever it is.
yeah, absolutely.
But do you have any idea what it is? And what would you say to those people who not quite sure and just don't get it?
Well, there's a multitude of things I would think. Number one being it's as simple as like, it's just 38 cars turning left and people don't understand the nuances and how to set up a car and all that and the strategy that goes into it. And it's hard, it's kind of hard to get into. I can understand that. And the whole nuances and everything. Another thing is some of the fans are kind of a rough crowd. Some people may see some of the fans and be like, I don't know if I want to be around these people. And which couldn't be further from the truth. NASCAR fans are pretty nice altogether. But I think what it all comes down to is as simple as, it's just cars. They think it's just cars running around in circles when it's a whole lot more complex than that. And for some people, I think it's just really difficult to keep them occupied to watch a race, I guess. And a lot of them are pretty long. So
do you like, and I can't articulate it well what they're doing, but how they've separated a race for particular points so that the first so many laps, they're getting their points. And so they're racing to that particular, like the 100th lap or
yeah.
Do you like how they've incorporated that into more strategical way of racing? Do you like how they've done that versus the older way?
Yes and no. I mean, I think it incentivizes everybody to run up front the whole race and not sandbag. And to an extent, I get why they did that, but it takes away sort of the the traditional appeal of NASCAR to me, because I get it. You got Charlotte, the Coke 600, it's 400 laps, 600 miles. When it's like lap 225, there's not going to be a lot to talk about. So I get why they did it.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, I'm so used to watching like a full race in its entirety.
Doesn't bother you.
Yeah, it never bothered me. But I think overall, I think it's kind of cool how they distribute the points from each stage, and I think that's kind of cool. But I would much rather see sort of what they were doing pre 2017, where they just had whole races, and it was a lot easier for me to kind of follow. But I get it 100% why they did it. So.
You mentioned your position now at 97.5, and you kind of talked about the process of it. What is something difficult you didn't anticipate? You're only a few years in, you're kind of doing it part-time, but what is something difficult and what brings you the most satisfaction? You kind of mentioned hearing your voice on the radio, or hearing yourself, or people commenting, but what are some difficulties and some satisfactions you get from your job?
Well, the biggest difficulty for me is, there's a lot of steps. And for me, I'm more of, I don't really think too much in steps. I just try to get everything done. But there's a lot of steps, and there's a lot of little things you do. And if you forget to do them, it messes up the whole thing. For instance, like we have two computers. One plays like music and everything, and the other plays the commercials. And on the button on that computer, you have to click mute satellites every so often, or the commercials will start playing, and you got to go back and drag all the tabs and rebuild where the commercials have to be. And I forget to press that a lot, and sometimes it'll just start playing the commercials, but nobody will hear it. But it'll be kind of a pain to go back and rebuild everything. But the best thing about doing what I do is when you go into a show that's really tough to do, and there's a lot of things you got to do, and you just do everything perfectly. And when you're done, you're like, man, I did that. And you hear it back on the podcast, and you're like, wow, that was really good. I really did a good job. And that's the best thing. Like, there's a show called The Blitz, and there's a lot of things you got to do. You got to like make audio, like sort of you got to make like a rewind that summarizes the whole show. You got to do that like really quickly. You got to play like certain commercials, and it's really tough. So when you do something like that perfectly and you just nail it, that's the best feeling. I'm like, man, I've always had trouble with this, and now I'm finally progressing to where I've done everything like perfectly and nothing happened bad. So I think those are the two things. But overall, it's really cool to have people reach out to you on the phone and stuff and say you're doing good, and the feedback you get is another really good, the best part of it. So
for people getting into the industry, or just for yourself realizing it, what is a skill that you've had to develop, or it's something that you may be lacking, but you're working towards perfecting it?
Yeah, I think the biggest skill that I've learned from this is sort of the responsibility of it. Like I didn't have as many responsibilities when I was just driving a dirt roller. I just drove the roller. Some days I would sign tickets for dump trucks that are coming in, and it was very rudimentary stuff. But on this one, you had to get there early, you had to show prep, you have to pull audio. It's showed me how to kind of, do tasks and stuff. And it's been a big help on remembering things, and just overall, like, it's also showed me how to work with people a lot more, because I didn't work with a lot of people before. But like it showed me all that, and the importance of like you're making connections with people and stuff, and that's what it's kind of. And it's showed the skill, another skill, like if we're talking just basic like skills, it's showed me how to work with Adobe Audacity and how to write stuff. So just those are your basic things. But if you're talking more about like your sort of I get
interpersonal,
interpersonal stuff. That's exactly what it's really benefited in both ways. So
since you're doing this part-time, are you doing construction as well? Or are you doing some other job?
not at the moment. Right now, it's been a tough it's been 2 months ago, my dad passed away of COVID-19. Yeah, I've kind of made peace with it a little bit, but I've been applying to places, and but everybody's kind of just been saying, "Don't worry, just kind of focus on radio and all that." But like that's pretty much occupied most of my time. Getting everything set up in the will and sort of doing tax stuff and all that.
How
And
do you
just
stay productive, Trey? Because that's what I'm leading to with the question. Because my mom passed away a year ago as well, not from COVID, but from cancer. And I saw some of your posts that your dad passed away and how great of a man he was. And I believe he is the one who did the action figure, no, for Frankie.
no, I don't think so. My dad, I don't think ever knew Frankie,
No,
actually. But I think the guy who did the action figure actually was in Ohio, I
was
think,
he
by
in
now.
Ohio?
Yeah,
How
that
do you
I can understand though where you would get that mixed up, because my dad was a sort of a handy person with tools and stuff. So
how do you stay productive with, you have a part-time job, you have a difficulty just 2 months ago, and you're still going through it. How are you staying productive, motivated, and kind of inspired to keep going? What is driving you? What is motivating you?
well, really and truly, I've just been kind of trying to like do basic stuff, like I've been trying. I just kind of apply to places. That's what my biggest motivator is. That like I'll kind of get another job to kind of keep me productive and stuff. And I've had a couple of interviews, but that's really my biggest motivator to be productive is just kind of like being able to do what I want to do and
Mm-hmm.
going to races and stuff and covering NASCAR and that I think that's probably what it is, and that and helping people around me, like I really like my friends will need help with stuff at their house and I'll go like help them. But staying that's what kept me productive more than anything, to answer your first question, is going and helping my friends. He's in the middle of a move, so that, and just trying to talk to as many people as possible, and kind
Because
of
if you think about losing someone just a couple months ago, that is hard. Having a part-time job, not only a part-time job, but having a part-time job that's not a full-time job, some people might be discouraged by that. But you're not
yeah,
saying that's how you are. Not saying that you're never discouraged, but you keep going. You're putting one foot in front of the other, even though you've experienced this difficulty and you're not where you want to be professionally yet. So it's
yeah,
really good on you, even though you're young, right? And to be going through
yeah,
this sort of thing, I just want to let you know that I think it's really good that you are staying productive, whatever your motivation is, because you're still working at it, and it's pretty good, and it's an inspiration for other people who sometimes they go through some of these things and they give up, right? They
yeah,
they just let things go and they don't work and they don't help out with whatever paperwork and all that stuff, or they don't help with other friends, right? Some people will
yeah.
shut right off, but you're not doing that, so that's good on you.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I've always been taught from a young age to anything that you want to do, you can do it as long as you set your mind to it, and just be persistent. And there's gonna be times where like you don't have any hours this week, and you're there's gonna be times where I'll get discouraged, but
Mhm.
usually I have a lot of people to help me, and it's been really good. So I just kind of like take it day by day more than anything, and I'm like, all right, well, today was kind of lame, but tomorrow we'll figure something out, and that's
I like that. Today was kind of lame, but tomorrow we'll figure it. I
yeah,
wish I wish I thought like that more often.
yeah, it's taken me forever. I mean,
Mhm.
when I was like really young, when I was like 16, 17, and in high school, I was like trying to figure out everything. I struggled academically and stuff. And I was I was like, I can't ever think about all this stuff. And I got really scatterbrained and stuff. But like people kind of calmed me down, and I found a way to get through it. And that's how it was when I was really young. And I was really scatterbrained around getting out of high school and going to college. I was like, man, I can't keep up with all this stuff. And I would get stressed out. But ever since dad passed away, I've been, there's no reason to be stressed out. At some point, everything's going to work out. Even if it doesn't work out at the radio station, it's okay. We can work somewhere else. I just try to remind myself that everything's going to be all right and it's going to pass regardless of what happens. And I've tried to find a way to be all right regardless. Even if I was like homeless or something, I'd still try to find a way to like see the best of it, I guess. But it's tough sometimes not to get discouraged. But overall, that's what's helped me through is realizing that it's all gonna pass. It's all temporary. So
Trey, knowing that you started working at the age of 6, helping your dad, being a kind of a gopher, and other people start from there up until 12, or other people who change their career, change their job from one to another, maybe into something that leads to something. Do you have some advice for people, whether they're starting a job for the first time or they're changing their career?
absolutely. The first thing I'd have to say is, I guess if you're going into like your first job and you're like a teenager or something, I wouldn't get too complacent and rely too much on like, I'd still be a responsible worker, show up early and everything, but like I would try my best to use that as like a springboard to what you really want to do. But when it comes to starting your career, the best thing I can say, always be there, even if you really love going somewhere, just be there, like even if you don't have to be, just go be there for a few minutes, hang out with some of the people, do some extra stuff. Like with me, I go and record a podcast up there once a week, or I'll have Frankie on, or I'll have somebody else on. But that's my biggest goal. If you really love something, just be there as much as you can, and make that sort of your biggest like starting point, is to just show up and kind of, and always be early, obviously, but just be there as much as you can, and get to know everybody. That's probably my biggest word of advice.
And I say this and thinking, you have a good head of hair on you, but you also have a good head on your shoulders. So do you have some moral beacon that's kind of guiding you along, something that you look to? You mentioned how instrumental your dad was in your life, but what is it that kind of is the bedrock of your morals and values?
Well, I think overall, when it comes to morality, I think my biggest thing is just treat people kindly, and just treat people the way you would want to be treated. I guess the golden rule is what they call it. That, and just be decent to people. Don't go out of your way to try and give people a hard time. And I guess just make things better. I don't know if there's so much a higher power up there that I would really say I follow, but overall, I believe in the sort of the act of just being decent to people, and not going out like if somebody lives next door to you, and unless they're not breaking the law or doing something really inherently bad, like beating their wife or anything, I just kind of leave people alone, to their own devices. But I would say the biggest bedrock, I guess, that, as you mentioned, of my morality, the foundation of it is to just be decent to people, regardless of what they think, regardless if they fall on the left or the right, just treat them like humans, I guess, like, and understand that that doesn't make what a person is. It's all about how that person treats other people, I guess. And if they don't treat somebody the best way, you just kind of don't really associate with them. But if they fall under the same sort of decency you do, that's the people I guess I kind of want to be around. And that's really it, really. Just be good to people, I guess.
Trey, as we get older, we learn different things. How is your view, since you mentioned you kind of struggled in high school with your education, and as we get older, our bodies start to break down. So what's your general view of education and exercise?
Education in America has its faults. I'm not a big fan of standardized testing. I think it's not the proper way to sort of get these kids through. And I think that there needs to be a more options, I guess, but I don't think it's terrible. We're certainly not where you guys are. I'd imagine in South Korea, education's a whole lot more, I guess, more pushed for.
It is. There's a lot of tests. I was talking to someone in grade 9 yesterday, and she said, so many tests, so many tests. And there's a lot of pressure to the point where that pushes kids to suicide. So
yeah, and that's not right. I don't think there should be that much pressure. The thing is, a lot of high school kids here in America, they're there because they have to be there. They're not there because they really want an education. But overall, it's really difficult to pinpoint exactly what everybody should know. I mean, you have your bread and butter, meat and potatoes type of things like paying bills and balancing a check and all that. But really and truly, I guess what it all comes down to is, do kids really need to know the Pythagorean theorem, to be smart, I guess, or do they need to know, all these sort of mathematical things? Like, I guess to an extent they do, but I think it's more about like trying to pass the standardized tests than it is like trying to prepare people for normal life, I guess. But overall, I don't think it's terrible. I think it's all right. I don't really have any complaints with how I was taught. Now, exercise, I really enjoy doing too. I sometimes go through phases where I don't do it as much as I should, but I really like walking, and I think that's really important. It's a good way of clearing your mind and stuff. And in America, it's not as talked about, I guess, in education. You have gym class, obviously, but the education system in the United States, to me, just kind of feels really corporate, and it's about trying to get the test prep places their money. And I just feel like it's not really gonna show you exactly what reality is, in my opinion. So but in other places, I think it works, but I don't know. School to me, I had a really hard time in school. But I don't know. It's very touchy, I guess. But overall, I think it could be better.
Well, I said you have a good head on your shoulder. When I was younger, I thought walking was a joke. Like, walking isn't exercise. And now, as I'm getting older, it's the only exercise I can do, and I find it most valuable.
Yeah, I think
going for a walk.
I think walking is really is pretty essential, I guess. You got to walk everywhere you go.
Someone told me the other day, is like, and I interviewed him, he's a Canadian basketball player, and he said, yeah, you're over in Asia where Asians, Japanese and Chinese and Koreans in particular, tend to walk. You don't see them working out so hard. Some do, but they just know that that's going to maintain your body as well. And they tend to take good care of themselves.
Yeah. Here in America, it's very different. Like in the South, in Texas, everything's so spread out. So everybody drives around. Nobody really
Mhm.
walks places like in New York or Oregon or all these, but like everybody just kind of drives around. And I've fallen victim to that. Anywhere I can drive to, I'd much rather drive to than walk. But walking is very much the basic fundamentals, I guess. And you know, it's good that it's good. It's a good way to clear your mind too, you know.
It's
But
funny. We drive to a place and we want that parking spot right up front because
yeah,
the one a little
yeah,
bit further where it's empty and there's no other cars and it would probably be good for your car anyway,
yeah,
and good for you. We tend not to. We'll circle
yeah.
around a few times.
I've seen that a lot, and going to like Walmart and stuff. It's like it's so crazy because like there'll be car wrecks and stuff, and it's just the one thing about parking lots, like what you were saying there, that I really despise are people that leave their carts and they don't take them back to the
Did you
cart
ever see?
corral.
Did you ever see Carnark? Is it Cardark?
Yeah, I
Carnark.
love that dude. He's doing the Lord's work. That guy's doing the Lord's work because people who like there'll be some times where they'll park right next to the thing and they'll still leave them there. I'm like, you can't
Oh,
walk like 5 feet.
he had one on yesterday or a couple of days ago. It came up on my YouTube, and and the lady freaked out.
Yeah,
He's like, he
it's
kept at it. He
yeah.
kept
At some point, you gotta like say, is it worth getting pestered? Let me just put the cart back. But these people, they stick to their
no,
guns.
no, they're really. Oh, she
Yeah,
was threatening to kill him.
yeah.
They just want to put the cart back.
It's just so ridiculous to me. I mean, it's that goes back to human decency. Like the least you can do is take a cart to the cart corral. It's just so it really irritates me. And I go when I go to the store and I see carts around there, I'm tempted to take them back myself, but I'm like, no, I don't have time for that. But I'm like, man, this is ridiculous. But yeah, it just kind of goes to show in America, like it's very there's a lot of sort of materialistic type of behavior, I guess. A lot of
Well,
people
it
are,
happens here in Korea too, and you know, we don't know someone's heart and the reason why they're thinking, but and the lady said it too. They pay someone to pick this up, right? So
yeah,
that's the idea. Some of the people's ideas, it's someone's paid to pick this up, so why should I? But he comes back, he's like, yeah, but you don't like urinate on a toilet on purpose, or you don't wreck the
no,
entire hotel room just because you don't do that on purpose. Your kid doesn't trash your house just to say, you know, you don't want your kid to trash the house and say, hey, mom is gonna pick it up. That's pretty poor logic.
yeah, I agree. I mean, like just because someone's paid to do it doesn't mean you have to be like a jerk to them and you know like and I get that way of thinking and there's obviously certain sort of there's certain excuses or certain circumstances that you can have, you know, like if like somebody's hurt and you're trying to get somewhere important, I get it. But
Mm.
like if you're just leaving your cart there just for, I mean, that could damage people's cars,
Mhm.
and it's just I just think it's absolutely lazy.
And
And
it's another reason why I have this podcast too, is I want to encourage people to work if they have children, get their kids to work by having a list of jobs before you start your career, or even if you just have one, or you just happen to have, you know, the basic human appreciation for others, to say, you know, what that job they do. Like, I remember working at a restaurant, or my mom worked at a restaurant for a long time. So I have a tendency to have an appreciation towards
yeah,
people who have to bus tables, right? So I don't kind of leave my table a mess for this person who has 100 tables to clean up this day, not to make mine the worst. So when people have those types of jobs, so if someone worked as a bag boy or bag girl at a restaurant, at a grocery store, and happen to be a cart buggy person, then they're going to appreciate too. Like, oh, I wish I had just one less cart today. And if you're the person who has a cart and puts it back, that's actually helping them, not only not damaging a car.
yeah, absolutely. And that's I think the biggest genesis of like why I would do it, because you know, like you don't know, there could be somebody who has a harder time and they need to get home or something, and
Mm-hmm.
if it's little, if even if it's a little bit less work that they got to do, I'm happy to do it on my end. And I think, like you said, it just based empathy for people, you know,
Mm.
like you said you've been there at a restaurant, you know, it's just empathy, you know, like it's you to have a job like that. It's not easy, I'm sure, to be a busboy. You have a lot of dishes to get. So if it makes people's job a little bit easier, I think it comes back around full circle, and people have, it just makes society a whole lot
You would
easier
think
to deal with.
society would be a lot better now. There's so many social warriors on the internet. It seems like would be the greatest, but you go out there and it's like
Yeah, and
a
and
war
to a
zone.
and to a degree, like there's a lot of people on Twitter that I think don't actually understand what's going on, and I think there's serious issues that they just
Their
want.
only battle is
Yeah,
on Twitter, you mean?
yeah, like I think there's serious issues, and instead of sort of understanding those issues and some of the nuances, a lot of them just see what people will react to, or will get them sort of clout in a way.
Mm-hmm.
They don't actually care about the cause. They're just trying to sort of fit in. And I see that a lot with celebrities. There's a lot of virtue signaling.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not, it's so frustrating, you know,
Very
like
much so.
I don't want to hear what Tim Allen has to say, or I don't want to hear what Chrissy Teigen has to say about anything, because you know it's hard to empathize with those type of people. But I don't know, it just seems really ridiculous, like on Twitter, you know, like and a lot of people are just trying really hard to look cool instead of actually seeing what's wrong and how they can fix stuff, I guess.
Yeah, it's those are little weapons people use. And I think they just kind of slice people like what is it, 1,000 cuts of death, or what is that saying?
um yeah, I'm not sure, I guess. You live by the sword, you die by the sword. I don't know, that could be one. But
What
yeah,
about you, Trey? What is your ultimate goal for media? What are you hoping to do? Have your own show, be the director, producer? What is your higher goal?
my goal as a media personality is to try and be as center as possible when it comes to issues. I want to try and talk to people and figure out what it is that they think the way they do.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I want to give people sort of, unless they're like Nazis or whatever, I want to give everybody a chance to sort of say what they have to say and try to come to an understanding to why people think that. And I want other people to, I want to be seen as somebody who sort of sees both sides of stuff. And that's my end goal, is to put out a product, or put out a sort of a show where people, where things, issues can be talked about, and there isn't any like anger or
Mm-hmm.
malice, and I can understand sort of on both sides. Like I guess I want to be a moderator more than
Mm-hmm.
anything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like I want to be kind of like sort of a moderator to things, I guess, is what I'm going for. And
It's,
that's my end goal.
is there anything for you to reach that goal? Is there anything that people may not understand about you that you would like them
Yeah.
to understand so they can have a better appreciation for the work that you're bringing to the table?
Yeah, I mean, I've always, like, when I was young, I got wrapped up in a lot of what I saw, and I still think some of it's valid. But like when I was young, I was very sort of skewed to the left, I guess, of things. And now I'm trying to be like dead center. But like, I don't want people to think that because of what I was when I was younger, I'm not gonna listen to what they have to say. Like I want people to know that whatever they think, I'm trying my best to understand the view from their world, whether it be somebody who is trying to get their message across with police brutality or why police brutality doesn't exist. Either one, I want to hear sort of what both sides are and understand so I can empathize a little bit better with what they think, because I can't empathize with a lot of those people. I have to know, and it's I because I'll never experience some of those issues as a, but like I want to at least try to understand how I can help with both sides and how we can make things better, I guess, as a society. That's my end goal. So,
Is there any adversity that you have faced that you can use to help encourage people in the adversity that they're facing in their work or in their life?
this is a great question, because when I was about 6 or 7 years old, I was in first grade. The biggest obstacle I ever had to face through all of this, I was diagnosed with Asperger syndrome, which is now called autism spectrum disorder or whatever. There's a different name for it every day. They change the names up on these things a lot. But I was diagnosed with that, and that's been the biggest hurdle I've ever had to climb up. As you could tell, there's sort of cues. I have hard times like looking people in the eyes, and sometimes when somebody's joking, I have a hard time recognizing that they're joking. It takes me a minute, but like that's probably been my biggest adversity, is dealing with sort of the autism and stuff. And funny that you mentioned it, how Frankie and me kind of like how me and you kind of came about because of Frankie. I really looked at Frankie as some sort of a motivator with everything he's had to go through as well. I know he also has autism spectrum disorder, I believe, as well. And I thought that was really cool how he went out in front of all these people and did what he did, and everybody really liked it. So that was a big motivator. But yeah, that's probably been my biggest obstacle, is dealing with the Asperger syndrome throughout my life, and a few other things, ADHD and all that, just the normal stuff they give you. So, but that's probably been it.
How would you use what you're experiencing as an encouragement for other people in what they face?
The best thing I would say to people is that I did it, but I'm on a much different path than a lot of people. But the best thing you can do is just do what you want to do. That's the best thing you can do. Everybody has limitations, and but if you do what you want to do, people will recognize that, and they'll be willing to accept you for whoever you are, and whatever things you have to deal with, as long as you just do what you do and just treat people kindly, I guess, and have human decency. But that would be my biggest motivator, or my biggest word of advice to people in my position, is just keep doing it, and don't worry too much about like clout or anything. Just do what you love doing. And that's what's helped me through.
How can people get in touch with you, Trey?
So I have Twitter. My Twitter is Juggalo_Trey48. That's a nickname they gave me at the radio station. That's pretty much primarily where I'm at the most, is Twitter. It's Juggalo_48 on Twitter. That's my Twitter username if you would like to follow me. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't really go on Instagram or all that. I try to limit my social media as much as possible. I'll go on Facebook and look at like old memories and stuff, or post pictures, but pretty much Twitter is where I get a lot of the news and stuff, like in sports. So that's what I try my best to be on. So if you'd like to find me, I'll be on Twitter.
I have one final question for you. Is there anything that, besides this question, is there anything that we haven't touched upon that you'd like to bring up? Anything else you would like to add?
Well, like I was sort of wondering how you got to South Korea. That was sort of like what led you there, I guess.
There's this story when people ask me this that I know it as well. I was sitting at a party at Katy University where I went to school, And there was this couple sitting there, and they happened to just return from Japan. I was like, oh, not knowing what I want to do with my future. So I was like, oh, that sounds great. How do I go there? What do I do? They go, well, it's a great experience, but you probably at that time, which was probably 2001, they said you might want to go to Korea because it's a better economy, or had a better economy
Right.
at the time. And then during that time, my mom happened to be working in Lower Sackville in the Downsview Motel, which was owned by Koreans. And so I mentioned to them, maybe I'm thinking about going to teach English in another country. And they said, well, if you do, we got a place for you. And within a couple of years, I said, yeah, I'm going to do it. And I left in 2005.
That's really cool. What's it? That's like got to be a big culture shock going from Canada, I'd imagine, to South Korea.
It was different. There's lots of things that I still, on and off. We were here. I married, my dear wife is Korean, so I'm married into it now. I can't
Yeah,
escape. But
of
we
course.
went to Canada, tried Canada, didn't really work out for us, so we came back here. So on and off, I've been here for 11 years. But with knowing that family in my hometown, that Korean family, and they had their in-laws living there too. So it wasn't that they gave me Korean food and taught me how to use chopsticks and all of that. And just growing up in Canada, my hometown was a little bit more multicultural to an extent. Canada
That's pretty
tends to be
cool.
like that. So it
Yeah.
wasn't a shock. It was different, but I accepted it. Um, the biggest thing I think was probably kimchi, the smell of kimchi. I was like,
Yeah.
when I got off the plane, I was like, but I knew the smell in my hometown, but I was like, wow, there's lots of smells around here. But then after living here a couple months, then I smelled just like it. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah. You kind
adapted.
of go nose blind to things, I'd imagine,
Yeah.
if somebody moved here to Baytown, they wouldn't be so used to the smell of oil refineries or smoke clouds. But after like 25 years, you just kind of become nose blind to that kind of stuff, I'd imagine. So, but yeah, that's cool. I always wanted to go to South Korea. A lot of
It's a nice place to visit. It's not very touristy, like
yeah.
foreign touristy. It's more of South Korean. It's made for South Koreans, and they kind of keep it that way.
Yeah, you hear a lot about your neighbors up there in the north. What man, that's got to be pretty interesting.
It's well, I think he fired a couple missiles there a couple days ago. I mean,
Yeah.
it kind of, and that was quiet for a long period of time, and now it just kind of picked up again. So I don't know. Since I came here, I always thought there was going to be a war. I mean, that was with his father at that time
Right.
before his father passed away. But now with Kim Jong Un, you never know what's going to happen. You never know what and that's probably part of the reason why, I'm a little bit, okay, what are we going to do about our future? Where are we going to be? What do we want to do? Do we want
Yeah.
to live? Because when I first arrived here and I was working in elementary schools, we would have sirens throughout the day that
Yeah.
everything had to stop. The lights stopped, cars stopped. I mean, the lights went red and all the cars stopped, and we had to stop teaching. And then the siren would go for a few minutes. But that is, I don't know why, but that has stopped in the last few years. But it was just a weird sort of thing coming from Canada and being here where, any moment they could declare war because they're still
Yeah.
technically at war.
It seems like it's a kind of a powder keg over there. I know. I remember I saw somebody in a hotel and he was like sleeping, and in the middle of the night, his TV turns on and it's like sirens and stuff. I was like, wow, the TV just turned on. He didn't even touch it.
Mm.
But it's very. I'd imagine it's very. That's sort of. I guess sort of anxiety to that. I'd
It was.
imagine.
I didn't ever experience a TV turning on, but just the sirens. I mean, nowadays with Corona, I get enough notifications on my phone. Do you guys get notifications on your phone?
I've got okay. So in America, it's every man for himself. Like I think I've gotten one notification, and I was in Colorado, and it was like, "There's somebody who has the virus. You've been exposed, and all that." I'm like, okay, whatever.
We get
Because I
10 a day.
yeah, I've already had it. And I survived. My dad didn't,
Mm.
but I survived. But I know it. Like you have to they have banking information and stuff, like it's all tied to that, and it's crazy. Like I'm like, I don't even want to know what would go on if they tried this stuff in America. People would probably
Crazy.
revolt.
And I'm just realizing this too, especially they're starting QR codes, like not starting
Yeah,
QR codes are huge. Like every store you go into, you have to submit your QR code.
right.
So not only do everyone knows where you are, but what you're spending. I even saw in the urinal the other day where a sign over the thing, it showed a really nice picture of a tree and a receipt kind of melted through it of sorts. So it's just kind of showing that receipts waste trees. Therefore, we're using QR codes. So everything
Yeah.
you buy at the grocery store, every time you go into a Starbucks, if you're wherever you go, you have to use this. And it's like we did our taxes this year and we did not have to do any paperwork.
Wow. Yeah, that's
And it doesn't take long. I mean, one thing,
yeah.
it's good. It doesn't take long. But two, they already know what you
Yeah, it's kind of scary. It's a little unnerving,
it is. Even a Korean man who was much older than me and not even a friend, but just he noticed. And he said, yeah, that's why a lot of Koreans hide gold and
yeah.
cash in their apartment because
Yeah.
it's even he said totally ridiculous is what's going on. It's
Yeah,
just
yeah, that's like I would never want that here, and I'm sure it happens here in America, but they're sort of a lot more secretive about it. But that's
not
just
so blatant. Yeah,
yeah,
here's
I
my
don't
QR code.
yeah, like it feels sort of I guess dystopian a little bit or Black Mirror-y, like you're showing up with your QR code. It seems a little bit too much like Black Mirror for me. So I couldn't, but I mean I guess it's I don't really know what it's done with the COVID infections if it's made it any better, but I don't know. It just seems like it doesn't. But I
Well, they
don't
found a
know.
new strand in India the other day. So, like, is it actually ever going to stop?
I don't think so. I mean,
Right.
it's gonna stop, but they're gonna stop talking about it, I think. But COVID won't go away. I mean, at some point, people are just gonna stop talking about it, and the vaccine's coming, and there'll be more mutations that won't protect the vaccines, and it'll get weaker and weaker, and people will just stop talking about it, and they'll move on to sort of the next
And
catastrophe, I
wherever it
guess.
came from, which we know where it came from, and wherever it happened, we don't know exactly, but they have a good, do I want to say weapon? They have a good
Yeah.
weapon if they ever want to do it again, because it kind of cripples the world. So I'm sure it's a new way of doing things. So
Yeah,
unfortunately,
yeah, and I'm hoping that people kind of like will kind of just it'll just be normal again. But I don't know what normal is gonna be. I mean, I really don't. It we could we could go back to like not wearing masks and full capacity stuff because in Texas it's open 100%. You can do whatever you want.
I saw
Like
your Ted Cruz there.
yeah, he's really. It's so funny how
I get
like
the
yeah,
reporter told him, put on your
yeah,
mask.
it's so funny. Like Ted Cruz is not somebody I like at all. I think he's sort of an idiot, but most politicians are. It's not just Ted Cruz. I don't like AOC or any of those people, but it's so funny. Like they'll tell you, okay, you've been vaccinated, you're good, you're immunized, but like they'll still be like, but you still gotta wear the masks. I'm like, if you've got the vaccine, isn't that the point? Like you're good, you're immunized, and I don't have anything against masks if you haven't been. I mean, I don't know if it works, but I'll follow the rules. But like if you've gotten the vaccine, why do you need to wear it? Like, or if you've already had it and you have the antibodies, I mean, what good does it do? I don't know.
I was
Like,
talking to a doctor here in Korea the other day, and he said in his hospital, and I think he does well, right? He's not
yeah,
just pushing garbage around, although there's nothing
right.
wrong with that,
No.
is that 30% in his hospital took the vaccine, 70% rejected it. And
Wow.
this is the hospital, and this is in Korea. So
Yeah.
um, And then I was like, well, that's good to know that 70% rejected it, or it's interesting. Go, well, the exact numbers. He didn't want me to quote him, but he did say, and a lot of people are rejecting it. And so,
Yeah, I don't know if I mean, if I get the vaccine, I get it. You know, it doesn't really. I don't know what it'll do. I don't know much about it.
mhm.
If I have to do things that I want to do, I'll do it. But like, I don't really know. I don't know enough about all that to really say
Mhm.
what's what. You know, I don't know enough about asymptomatic spread or any of that. I try my best to like I really don't know what would happen. I'm clueless when it comes to all
Yeah,
that
I
stuff.
have no idea.
Yeah.
I'm more resistant until I have to. And then I'm like, okay, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Even
Anytime.
masks, I'm like,
Yeah.
masks, I hate them. I really hate them.
Yeah.
But if I have bad breath, they're okay. Or if someone else has bad breath, or if I
Yeah.
yawn or something, or whatever, they're not
Yeah.
the worst thing in the world to have to do.
Yeah. It's very minor. I always thought it was kind of funny. Like you'd have all these people run into Kroger's or any other grocery store and they'll be like yelling at these poor employees. Like I'm always like, come on, man. It's like you gotta wear a mask for 30 minutes. Is that the worst thing in your life? I get not liking them, but it's like you don't have to take it out on the store employees that are just trying to do their job. You know, I thought that was kind of lame.
I think I'd
But
rather wear like a motorbike helmet
yeah, that
or
would be
a
cool too.
race car
Yeah,
helmet. I would rather walk around with one of them than a mask. I don't know.
yeah.
Just
And I get why people don't like them, you know, like, but I just always found it like hilarious that these people are like, it's like they're coming and taking their kids, you know, like it's just a mask, honestly, and we'll
yeah.
be out of it soon. They've already like in Texas, if you don't wear a mask places, nobody really does anything. They don't kick you out of the store. It's very rare.
There was
But
a
like
lady, wasn't it, just the other day? I mean,
that got her, yeah, that got
in the
her foot
bank.
broken. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so. And that's sort of an outlier from what I've seen.
I hope so.
Anytime I've gone to sort of an establishment, I've seen so many people. I've seen like always a few people not wearing them, and nobody really does anything. They just kind of, but like you can't honestly like you can't attack people for that. I mean, they're not like they're not hurting anybody. And if you have your mask on and they don't have their mask on, you should be good regardless. But I don't get it. I'm so over the whole thing, you know, like at this point, if you want to wear one, I have more power to you. If you don't, I understand. I just try to I
Yeah.
don't it's such a weird debate to be having, you know,
Yeah.
in this time. There's like unemployment is like 7%, and there's like 760,000 people without a job, and like we're trying to figure out who shouldn't and shouldn't wear a mask. It seems sort of like a deterrent of some sort. So I just hope that we get to the point to where things are more civil amongst people, you know.
Mhm.
And I don't know. We might not, but at the end of the day, all you can do is just try your
Yeah,
best.
try.
Yeah, to treat people with respect, you know.
Trey tries. Trey, one last question.
All right.
Why do you work?
Well, I work because it's a good way to occupy my time. It's a good way to get ahead. And but at the end of the day, when you're working and you're doing something you love, it's hard to call it work. Um, but working is a great. It gives you meaning. You know, it gives you purpose, and it helps you better society. And everybody who does a job, regardless of what it is, whether you're a janitor at a hospital, like you said, or you're the president of the United States, everybody who does their job is worthwhile. And as
Mhm.
long as they keep doing that, I think we'll continue to find where we are now, and there'll be some sort of civility amongst people because everybody has a certain job and a responsibility, and everybody should really be recognized for that, you know, because it takes it really, it's really good to better society by doing whatever job it is you're doing. And that's why I work. I think just to better make society better in any way. I think that's why I do it.
Trey Campbell, board operator at ESPN 97.5. I appreciate the time that you have given me.
Yeah, this has been great.
I appreciate the work that you do.
Thank you. And I appreciate I'm sure in Korea, they push it a little bit harder to learn English in another language. And I think that's pretty cool that they do that, and that people over there teaching English. I'm sure it's pretty rewarding to hear people speak. So yeah, that's really cool.
If it wasn't rewarding, my dear wife would not be happy.
Yeah, I would imagine, because, you know, like it's you could go out and do a job and it not be rewarding, but at the end of the day, you'd just be miserable. So that's good that you're doing what you love up there, or down there, wherever we are geographically. And thank you for doing what you do and teaching kids English. So that's really cool.
Thank you, Trey. And maybe we'll see you soon moderating somewhere, show
maybe
soon.
Maybe 2028. Maybe you'll see me on the debate stages with whoever, against maybe Tucker Carlson or whatever will be up there with Oprah or whatever politics looks like in 2028. So we'll see, I guess.
Thank you, Trey.
Thank you for having me on. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you to Trey Campbell. You can catch him on Twitter. Find me, BrianVee, here on YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment, share, get the notification button. You can also find me on Apple, Google, Spotify, any podcast platform out there. If you'd like to be a guest on Why We Work, email me. Or if you know someone as well, email me at whywework@brianvee@gmail.com. Whywework, BrianVee, VEE, @gmail.com. And we can make it happen. I'm BrianVee, and this is Why We Work.